Hi, and welcome to Professor Cap Show. I got my buddies Max and Eamon with us from Synopto. Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Let's jump right in. How'd you come up with this idea?
All right. So we might as well start with the origin story first. A couple of years ago, last year rather, not a couple of years ago, me, Eamon, and our third co-founder, Michael Muzaffarov, joined a hackathon at UPenn. And when we were trying to come up for an idea for this competition, we were sitting together and thinking about what do we hate most? What are we worst at? What do we need to fix?
Nope.
And after a bunch of deliberation, fighting over different ideas, we came to the conclusion that we're pretty bad at studying. All of us have some sort of problem with studying, whether it's what information we are studying, our schedules for studying, our medium of studying. We all do something a little bit wrong. So we thought to make our hackathon project like an algorithmically proven method of studying that maximizes retention and maximizes how much you actually learn out of what you spend time on. So that's why we created Synopto. The name Synopto is supposed to be like synaptic retention, and what the app is essentially made to do is to be a study app for pretty much anyone to learn information with. That not only promotes memorization, but promotes a concrete understanding of what it is you're memorizing with application-based questions using AI. And another key feature of Synopto that we really want to emphasize is that studying should be done over a long period of time with an enforced schedule. So what Synopto does is it creates a schedule for you over a period of time, say before a test, before a due date, and the user will essentially receive notifications when it's the best time for them to study a given question, which we calculate. And paired with that notification, that user will also be locked out of unproductive apps like TikTok, Instagram until they go and actually. So, key three things: understand, don't memorize, space your time out, and get off of unproductive apps when it's actually time to study. That's the three things we're trying to offer.
So if I'm supposed to be studying from 4 to 5 and I'm not, it will lock out my TikTok and my Instagram and all that.
Yeah, so essentially you'll get a notification that'll just say something like Synopto says it's time to study. And until you're finished reviewing what you need to review for your exam, you can't enter those apps in the same way that when you run out of time and like a screen limit that you put into your settings, it'll like won't allow you to enter those apps.
Just to clarify a little further how the screen lock works, it's not based off of a time limit. Rather, it's based off of like a question that you need to answer. So, say today at like 4:30 p.m., I'm gonna have a notification received that I need to answer this question for this study set. What it's going to do is essentially just wait for me to answer that question, and until it's answered, I'm going to be locked out of those apps. Those apps are also not something that we arbitrarily decide. The user gets to pick which apps they deem unproductive. So it adds a little bit of customizability and doesn't lock people out of like iMessage if they're like a travel nurse or something.
No, I mean, it makes sense and stuff. How does it know like the study questions to ask me?
Yeah, so each study set is made off of two key things that the user has to define. The first thing, well, rather actually, before I even get into that, I'll walk through the entire like account process.
Yeah.
A user creates an account. They use regular email password. The two key pieces of information we need about the user are their grade level and their age. This helps our like internal AIs to essentially determine what kind of questions they need to answer, what level they're at, what they need to do to actually get good understanding of what it is they're doing. They don't get too easy or too hard questions. Next, say a student has like a psychology test in 2 weeks. So they're going to make a study session. That study session is going to be titled for whatever kind of psychology, say Freudian psychology, it's the example we use in our pitch. And they would set a due date for 2 weeks from now. And then they would input two types of questions. They would put like flashcards, like in Quizlet, you can put A is equal to B and you got to study it. And the second thing that we offer is that they can also just input a rather broad topic sentence that we will generate application-based questions for. So say for, I don't know, for Freudian psychology, you add a topic statement about like, what does Freud think about like developmental psychology, something like that. We essentially just have an LLM generate a question based off of that user's age and grade level and the topic to match that topic that essentially acts as a test question. And then we swap around based on this algorithm called the Leitner system to choose which question, which topic it is they have to answer next. And that's kind of how we determine the whole flow.
Okay, and so obviously I see what it's doing, but is it set to you have to study every day? You have to study for 30 minutes every day? How does it all work? Like how often do you get these messages?
Yeah, so we're still playing around with an exact schedule in terms of how often you would get these questions. But they're not so narrow it down at least a little bit. You mentioned either like how many questions or how long you have to study a day. The way we have it planned out right now is that a user would have a number of questions sent per day rather than a time. It wouldn't be a time-based thing, it would be a quantity-based thing. And those questions would the frequency would not only be determined by the number of things that they've inputted, but also how close it is they are to their due date. Say it's the day before, they're probably going to get more questions asked than the first day they started.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of math that's involved in order to actually like formulate a good scheduling function for this. So that's kind of what we're working on right now.
Now, so they're getting the questions, they get them right. Do they keep seeing those questions to make sure they remember them? Or is like you get it right and okay, you're ready. Finally flashes, you're ready for the exam. Or do I keep seeing those questions?
Yeah, so I think that it will, so right now what we're doing is it kind of has to reinforce like what you're trying to learn. So you're not necessarily going to be asked the same exact question repeatedly. You're going to be asked similar questions about topics that you're not very strong in. And then it'll space out those questions and ask things that you're less sure about more frequently before the exam, just to like cover any holes.
Yeah, and just to specify that even further, so the way we store questions, like the flashcards and the topic statements, are in these things that we call boxes. Those boxes are labeled either box 1, 2, or 3. And the questions essentially move around these different boxes based on how many times the user gets them right, or what the proportion is of correct to incorrect for that question. So depending on which box a topic statement or a flashcard is in, that will determine how many times a day, how many times a week you're receiving that question to answer.
Makes sense. I'm kind of chuckling at your thing in a good way, because in my class, I always giggle at students who use flashcards because they always score really high on the exam. So as soon as I see someone take the cards out, I'm like, all right, I feel good about these guys. That and Quizlet, they always score highest in the class. So when you started telling me this, I'm like, okay, they found a way to not have to write out the little cards and keep flipping them. Hey, you keep sending me the questions. So I'm like, all right, they solved that, because the other day I was laughing. One of my students had the stack of cards, she dropped them and kicked them across the room. It's like, my cards, it was just like, it was a big deal, So I was just kind of thinking, I'd be like, great, he just put a footprint on my card and stuff. So I think it's kind of a cool way. So what's the future? Are you going to be able to expand this into different classes? How many classes can you do with it right now? It seems like as long as I upload the questions, I can cover pretty much any class with it.
Yeah, so we're currently in the phase of kind of narrowing down our target market, trying to see who do we market towards first and what kind of students we allow to use a beta. We're planning to have a beta done by the end of April, so like right before finals this year. And what we're deciding between like a target group of users to use is people that have like standardized tests that they need to take towards the end of the year. Like law students, med students, business students, people that have like a test that's very well defined online. And the reason being is for those topic statements that I was mentioning earlier, AI has training data based on what's real, and it can't make stuff up that's not real. So things that are very well documented online, standardized tests, for example, we will have a lot better, the AI rather will have a lot better understanding of how to actually formulate a good question for those types of projects. For other studies like philosophy, for example, something that's not super concrete, not something that's like super well documented, at least for some topics in philosophy, we think our platform won't necessarily be the best to use, at least right now, at least while we're still developing our own like AI like manipulators for existing LLMs. But at the stage it is right now, we're kind of trying to focus on students with tests they need to take.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And
good.
Sorry. I was just gonna add, we're heavily leaning towards law students because if you think about how law classes are set up, it's like you have like a lecture once or twice a week, and then you just have a giant exam that's like basically your whole grade at the end of the year. So if we can get beta users that are in law school, they can put in when their end of year exam is, and then they can get testing done throughout the entire semester.
That's cool. So how can we help? What do you need?
So we currently have a wait list. We kind of have like a temporary information site, and
Yep.
then you can just put your email in, and if you wouldn't mind,
Of course.
would love if you could share that waitlist link with your students or like really anyone that you know, and then it'll put you on a waitlist for when we release the beta.
Yeah, no, like I said, just shoot that over to me. We'll put it with the video. So, guys, I really appreciate you taking a couple minutes to come on the show. And as always, thanks for being my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Of
Have a
course.
good one.